Good morning, gentlemen and guests. Welcome to the 33rd Annual H.K. Douglas Cotton Memorial Lecture. Now, back in 1979, Gilman had the great fortune to receive a very generous gift for the creation of an endowment fund to establish an annual lecture on career planning. And it was the wish of the donor, H.K. Douglas Cotton, to, quote, instill in our students a better understanding and a keener interest in the world of business and economics, end quote. And this stipulation has been interpreted to include all of the leading professions, from law and the sciences to business and industry. Now, although Mr. Cotton never attended Gilman himself, he developed an association with the school while his 7 grandsons were students here in the 70s and 80s. And he currently has great-grandsons, I believe it's 3, who are attending Gilman and are in the upper school as well. We are extremely grateful to the Cotton family for their continued support and interest in this lecture series. And I especially would like to welcome the members of the Swindell family who are here today to listen to us. Please give them a round of applause. Our next speaker is Mr. Mark Newman, a member of the class of 1981 who is currently Chief Executive Officer of 510 Ventures, a privately owned investment holding company. Now, 510 Ventures owns and operates a variety of businesses and real estate projects. Among his businesses, Mr. Newman is a partner in several restaurant ventures in Baltimore and one even in Bethany Beach, Delaware. And he's held this position since 2000. From 1991 until 2000, Mr. Newman was president and co-founder of Special Counsel, Incorporated, the nation's largest legal staffing provider and now a wholly owned subsidiary of an international staffing company. When he left, Special Counsel had more than 25 offices throughout the country and revenues of approximately $100 million. Mr. Newman is a graduate of Franklin and Marshall College and the University of Maryland Law School and is admitted to the bar in both Maryland and the District of Columbia. Prior to co-founding Special Counsel, he was a real estate lawyer with a former Maryland law firm of Frank, Bernstein, Conaway, and Goldman. A Gilman School trustee, Mr. Newman is currently serving as the 2012-2013 Gilman Fund Chair. He's also the chair-elect of the Board of Directors for the Associated Jewish Community Federation of Baltimore and a member of the Advisory Board for Bridges at St. Paul's School. He resides in Owings Mills with his wife and 3 children, including his son Paul, who's a member of our senior class. Please join me in welcoming Mark Newman.
Thank you, John. I should have insisted on going first rather than following someone with the credentials of Dr. Cameron. But it's an honor to be here. The last time I spoke here, I think, was for my senior speech when I spoke on Germany's Weimar Republic. Hopefully, there'll be more of you awake at the end of today's than there were then. And it's an honor to be part of the Cotton Memorial Lecture. I graduated with 2 of Mr. Cotton's grandsons, one of whom is here today, so it's a real honor. As you heard, I've had somewhat of a diverse career, and rather than try to speak about each of those, I thought what might be most helpful would be to talk about my initial journey from when I was sitting in your seat to how I really got started in business. So when I was sitting right out there, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought it might be something in business, but I didn't know. And then I went to college, and as college was finishing up, I still didn't really know. So I did what all lost college students do. I applied to some graduate schools. And I was sort of deciding between business and law school, opted for law school, thinking that it would be good background regardless of what I did. So I went to law school, but I also decided I was going to take advantage of that time to really try to explore many different avenues. So while in law school, I did a variety of different things. I worked in the tax department of a very large accounting firm, just long enough to know that wasn't for me. I worked in the litigation department of a good law firm during the school year. That wasn't for me. I worked for a large developer doing some leasing work, and that did continue to spark my interest in real estate, so I thought maybe I was onto something finally, and that's where I ended up heading, in that direction. I went to work for the largest law firm in Maryland, what was then the largest law firm in Maryland, in their real estate department, and practiced law there. And as Andy was saying, his mom got to say Andy the doctor, and mine got to say, Mark the lawyer. They were very proud, and in their eyes, my path was pretty much set. To go back to that period of time, which is not the case anymore in law firms. When you got a job as an associate in a big law firm, there was a very defined path. If you stayed there a certain number of years, you became a partner, and with partnership came a certain level of tenure, and basically you were there. You were done. No need to look for a job anymore. So after about 2 years of what should have been my final journey, I was miserable. I was waking up in the morning, dreading going into work every day. It was like that for me. I just couldn't stand it. I'm sort of a restless person, and just being confined in an office with all this paper was driving me crazy. And it got to the point where everything out there started looking good to me. And just to give you an example, I had to take my watch to get fixed at this place on Calvert Street. And this old watchmaker worked on the 3rd story of this walk-up, and it was like a movie set. You'd walk in, and it was an oversized closet, no windows, floor to ceiling, grandfather's clocks and watches everywhere, and he's hunched in the middle with a light and magnifying glasses working on watches all day. And I started talking to him, and he was a real nice guy, and explained how he was getting up there in years, and he wished he had somebody to turn his business over to. And I'm thinking, this is perfect. It is, sure, I'm restless, but at least I get to work with my hands. I'll get to see the results of my labor at the end of each day. And for about a week, I really toyed with this idea. I didn't know anything about watches or clocks, but so be it. So I finally realized that probably wasn't the right way for me to go. And I had heard about another friend of mine from law school who had also left another large law firm because she was unhappy and had decided just to contract herself out to other law firms. So I met with her, and we decided very quickly that we would form a firm for lack of any creativity. We called it Black, her last name, and Newman. And we were going to specifically cater to other law firms. We were not going to be a general law firm. We were going to contract ourselves out to law firms. She would focus on litigation. I would focus on commercial and real estate transactions. Within literally a couple weeks, neither one of us really wanted to practice. We started thinking, if firms would hire us and we were getting some jobs, there are much better people out there than us. We've only practiced 2.5 years. There were highly qualified people that each of us knew who had left law for whatever reason. Mothers who had left law firms to have children, people that had left to start alternative careers, retired people. And we thought maybe if there's a way we could match them up with the jobs, we don't have to practice law, and that could be our business. And little did we know, we literally stumbled into what's a very, very large industry, the temporary staffing industry. We knew nothing about it. It's a multi-billion, hundreds of billion worldwide industry. But we had stumbled into a very specific niche. We fell within what's now called the professional temporary staffing industry. And within that, we were the legal piece of that. And to sort of go back to that period of time, it was 1991 when I left my law firm, which was the largest law firm in the state. There was not one computer on an attorney's desk, not one. Work was still done by sending it downstairs to this big typing center, and they were very proud that they had someone there 24 hours a day. And nobody had heard of venture firms for the most part. Venture capital wasn't really a commonly used term, and I didn't have people going off and starting businesses. And you hear about that all the time now. It really was sort of a crazy notion that we were leaving the security of these jobs that we had to do this. But we were both so unhappy, at least in my case. I was so unhappy. It didn't seem risky because I could not continue on the path I was. So we started this firm. We stumbled into this industry. We decided we would talk to some people before we really did it. And we went and we spoke to many different people at large law firms and small law firms and medium-sized law firms all over the city. And almost universally, they told us one message. Maybe it's a good idea, but if it was a really good idea, somebody would already be doing it. And we heard that all of the time. It became sort of a running joke for us. If it was any good, somebody would be doing it. And if I would have a message for you to take away is, that's not true. You can come up with ideas that are not being done, and people do it all the time, and you see it all the time. So we still went forward, and we did it. And at that point, again, when there were no computers on the desk, law was practiced in a traditional way. Big law firms had never hired a temporary attorney. And I would venture to say there was nowhere in the country where a major law firm had used a temporary staffing service. Now that's easy to say at that point because there weren't many of us. Now, if you fast forward to today, there is not one major firm in the country that doesn't utilize temporary legal staffing, not one. And it's a big part of their business plan. It's how they ramp up for the ebbs and flows, basically, of the business. So we ran with it. We grew pretty quickly. It was all based on going out and cold calls and meeting with people and explaining to them why this would be beneficial to their business, because they had never heard of the concept. So we grew pretty quickly. We saw this was going to be a game of giants. Once we realized we were part of this bigger industry, you could see the large national and international law firms starting to circle. They realized there were these small slivers of business that they were not involved with. So we decided we either had to bring in outside money so that we could grow very quickly, or we needed to hook up with someone who would allow us to grow very quickly. So we ended up selling our business and becoming the legal staffing arm to this publicly traded company. And we stayed with them for a long period of time. We ran it from Baltimore. They were based out of state. And we grew very quickly. We grew to about 25 offices and significant revenue. And the time came, though, where I was rewinding back to where I was. I was not looking forward to going into work. It was a different environment. It had become a larger organization that required different skill set than really I provide. I'm much better, I'm much more excited at the onset when it's the creativity side, the sort of dealing with the unknowns and trying to put all those together, to wrap them together. But this now had reached a stage where it needed really good managers to operate it, and that's probably not my forte. So that's the point where we left, and that would be sort of the other message that I would encourage you to have, and that's to learn what you're good at and what you enjoy. Because for me, I've never been very successful when I'm not happy. My work suffers, and it's obvious. And the converse is also true. When I'm happy, I'm much more successful. When I pursue my passions, I'm much more successful. So there's a lot more out there than just getting a paycheck. And I'm convinced that if you find things that you enjoy, if you pursue your passions, you'll figure out a way to make it work financially. But number one, you need to find what you're interested in. So after I left that, I've done a variety of different things, as Mr. Schmick mentioned, from restaurants to some other small businesses to venture capital, and I continue to be involved in commercial real estate. And they have not, I wouldn't want to give you the message that in any way that they've all been successful. And I've definitely had some business startups that have gone nowhere. And I've learned as much from those ventures, maybe more, than I have from the successful ones. And that would be sort of the other takeaway from this. Don't be scared of failure. You're going to have, if you try enough things, you're going to have them, and you will learn more from those failures. And often, the next step, you'll see success. So, I wish you luck, whatever path you end up pursuing. I am an organ donor on my license, so I've got that. I can check that one off, Dr. Cameron. And thank you very much for having me. I'm honored.